All right, welcome to the last video series on the weathering of the E-flite 1.2 meter Corsair. And of course, these tips and tricks work for any warbird or really any airplane, either scale model, RC model. In fact, I learned most of these tricks from scale modeling. And the very last thing I do is the exhaust staining. It's kind of what really sets the airplane off and really makes it look like it's a real flying machine. And that is all that soot and grime and oil and everything that comes streaking out of the cowl and out of the exhaust pipes. And to help me do that, I have a wonderful picture of the Corsair here that you could find. This is not my image. I'm not going to take credit for it. I wish I was that good of an aviation photographer. But this image is fantastic. You can find this on Google Images at showing the exhaust staining. And you'll notice that the exhaust extends all the way back, really, until the tail area here. It's kind of a straight line back, except for right in the wing area, it kind of curves a little bit, and then it kind of flattens out and extends back. The area just up here by the exhaust stacks is very, very dark. In fact, this whole area here, it just reeks just oil everywhere. If you've ever seen a Corsair that's in flying status, like at an air show, you'll notice that area is just drenched with oil everywhere. It's amazing the amount of stuff that comes out of a radial engine. So we want to try to mimic some of that staining on this E-flite Corsair to make it look even more realistic. So let me come around and we'll go ahead and get started, shall we? All right, so we've kind of zoomed in the camera a little bit here to make it a little bit easier to see. I'm going to kind of move this out of the way to make it even better. But as you see, I've already started on this side here, and on my particular Corsair, I've actually added the early model Corsair exhaust stacks here. These are not on the E-flite model. These are actually three tubes on each side that have been cut at an angle, painted brown, and weathered with different color pastels to make them look like exhaust stacks. If you're really good, you'll notice that there are three cowl flaps here that are not on the E-flite model as well. I added those because the model that I'm building, the -1A, would have the cowl flaps on the bottom. So a little tough getting them to fit because this shape of the cowl is not exactly accurate for the model that I'm actually trying to build. But anyway, it's close enough that you can start to look at the pictures and realize that this area in here is where a lot of the oil from the radial engine starts to drip out. It starts dripping out around the cowl flaps, around these access panels, and pretty messy back behind here where the flaps are open. You also can see I have these three round circles here. This is a decal that Cali Graphics made up for me. And these are actually what we consider the backfire baffles. Because of the way the carb is designed, fuel, if you flood the engine, fuel can drain down into the carburetor and ignite and blow the carburetor. So these baffles actually blow outward in case of a backfire, which protects the carburetor. So there's a lot of fuel and oil staining that's around here. And to kind of mimic some of that fuel oil stain, I use thinned down black acrylic paint, and I simply just start adding it in this area, streaking it back. It comes out of the exhaust area, it comes out of the cowl flaps, comes out of the backfire baffles. And then I use my paintbrush with some of that dark charcoal to actually just start to kind of diffuse some of that area so it doesn't look so, I guess, distinct. Just kind of diffuse it a little bit here, kind of blow that off, and that just helps kind of tone it down a little bit because it's not going to be, solid black. It kind of flows outward as it kind of leaves the aircraft and kind of goes around. So the airflow kind of moves it all over the place. So it's good to diffuse that a little bit, make it look a little less noticeable, or at least so distinct. But after that's done, which I didn't really replicate here or show you how to do that here, but it's pretty easy. Just take a paintbrush, dilute down some black paint, and you just simply streak it back to simulate oil. Next up is the part I really want to get to, which is the exhaust staining. And that's what we looked at for the use that reference picture that I showed you a few minutes ago from the internet. And then I use my black on the little piece of cotton ball here, and I start streaking this back. Okay, so we start at the exhaust stack, and we know from pictures it tends to angle inward through here, and then it streaks back, kind of follows this line, And another thing to note is that this area here is indented. It's down a little bit, so that disrupts the airflow. So you're not going to get any exhaust staining in this area. There's actually a little like trap door area that kind of opens up. I don't know exactly what it does, but it's not modeled well in this particular version of the Corsair. It could be because it's a Dash 4 and not the Dash 1A, but that area there tends to get really oily, and that sits right into this area. But we don't have that exposed on here to mimic. But we are going to continue this streak upward or towards the center of the aircraft and really start building in layering of the exhaust. And that's the nice thing about the chalk is you can layer it. You can continually build it until it reaches the point of where you think it looks about right. Okay, so now we streak it back. Now I won't be able to get all the way back from the angle I'm at and on the camera. I'll have to do that separately because it's just, I can't get my arm back there and you don't want to screw this up. But I will focus on this area here, okay? Let's see, it definitely flows this way. And remember I talked about the prop actually kind of pushes it down a little bit. We're gonna get a little bit down into this area here. Okay. Like I said, you just continually build this up using the chalk, all right? So I'm gonna add a little bit. You can see where I'm starting to get a little bit light in here that I want to make sure I fill that in. Let's go. Starts to follow that in. We've got a panel line that we want to cover in a little bit as well. Go. All right. And we just continually work our way backward here. At this point, it really just starts to flow kind of straight back. Kind of that curve is done at this point. And it just kind of flows right back along here to the tail. Okay. You just kind of keep adding the layers as needed to make it look somewhat symmetrical. Because at this point, it pretty much is. Move this off here. It kind of collects behind the aircraft as it kind of exits here. Just going to follow that through. Okay, it's a little too defined right now, so what we do is we take our cleaner one here, and now we just simply run it down, kind of to knock that down just a little bit here. And I'm just going to kind of back and forth just a little bit. Just enough because I want to diffuse that area just a tiny bit so it doesn't look so perfect. Okay, there we go. So we know we're going to stretch out a little bit here. There we go. Okay, one of the most important things to do is always when you get done, take a step back and take a look at it. Okay, take a look at it from a distance and see what it looks like. You can see I need a little bit more staining to kind of match. Okay, so then not a problem. That's easy enough, so we just come back into here. And it's easy as that. Okay. And take the clean one and run back over it and just kind of make it. There we go. Once again, take a step back, take a look at how we did. Yep, and I realized with the way I had the camera, you couldn't see everything I did on the tail, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Not much to really do there, except for you can see it just kind of fades back as it goes. So you have this area here that it kind of comes together around the wing. it breaks up in this section here where the airflow is disrupted, and then it just kind of fades back and kind of streaks over to the tail, and it doesn't really get too strong in the center. And the best thing to do to get this right is to actually look at some pictures on the internet and just kind of take a look at how they are, how the real ones get dirty. Really, that's the most important thing. If you want to try to be accurate as you can, you're going to want to look at some of the actual flying Corsairs and try to mimic what you're seeing. I'm going to add a little bit more staining in here to kind of replicate that helical effect of the exhaust being spun by the prop. Okay, and like I said, the nice thing about chalk, you keep layering it until it looks right. It's less likely to overdo it with chalk than it is with a lot of other mediums. If you're doing it with paint, you pretty much just get you get one shot at it before you kind of overdid it. Where here you can just keep adding it layer by layer until you look at it and say, yep, that gets me about what I want for the exhaust staining. Like I said, it looks good. We need a little bit more on the bottom of this flap here, from where the prop would spin that exhaust outward. Okay. There. That pretty much wraps up the exhaust staining here on the bottom of the aircraft. Once again, I'm going to take a step back and just kind of take a look and see how does it compare. All right, well, the bottom of the Corsair is now weathered, which means it's time to go get out the, put the last couple decals on. It's the last thing I do, and then go ahead and seal it all up with a coat of dull coat, and that's going to seal in that charcoal. So you don't want to, like right now, I have it all over my hands. You don't want to touch the airplane like this, and you don't want to leave it unsealed, because if you leave it unsealed, it means you're going to spread it all over the place. So you want to seal it up as soon as you are done with the decals and the weathering. Use either Tester's gloss coat or dull coat. We're going to be using dull coat on this one because it's a non-shiny surface on it, and that will seal everything up, and that will complete the weathering on the E-flite Corsair. So like before, if you guys got any questions on how to weather these airplanes, by all means, leave your comments below. It's a little difficult to really show you on the video all the, you know, how to do it other than like I did today. It's a little bit tough, but I'm happy to help out any way I can, help walk you through it. By all means, do your research. That's the most important thing when it comes to weathering. Do your research up front. Look at your pictures. Identify what pictures you can find on the internet that say that's exactly how I want my plane to look. And then use those charcoals to work on replicating it. They have multiple colors you can use. You just go to a Hobby Lobby or any artist store, pick up a set, and you can do pretty much any color you could think of. You can mimic that on the airplane and really start to bring the airplane to life. Because a lot of the weathering here on the exhaust was on the white surface, we pretty much just left it as the black instead of anything else. If you're going to be weathering a dark surface, let it be known that if you're running high octane fuel, which is what these airplanes would use, it actually leaves more of a white to light gray exhaust staining on dark colored airplanes. But on the bottom of the white Corsair, like I'm doing here, it's pretty much just a black. You can still run over over right where the exhaust stack exits at. You can use a little bit of gray or a little bit of white and kind of mimic some of that high octane exhaust staining that you're going to get there. But for the most part, all the pictures I found, it's pretty much solid black from the exhaust tip all the way down to the tail. You can also look at my Flickr site, BRGT350. I shot a couple hundred pictures of Corsairs in preparation for this project, both flying ones and static ones. The flying ones, of course, I did a lot of detailed pictures on the weathering, on how the exhaust tips look, how the oil drains out of them, where the where everything kind of gets dirty at the airplane. So by all means, you're more than welcome to use any of my pictures as reference. And as always, feel free to leave your questions and comments below. I'll be more than happy to help you out.